Okay, so let's start. Good morning, everyone, to our webinar on how to implement EUCAST 2021 into the VITEK system. I will just give a small introduction today on what the timeline will be. So just some practical topics. So mute yourself. To be honest, that's not an issue because your standard, you're already muted, so that's already solved. There are several ways of asking questions. I think that. Ooh. Yeah, we're just checking if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So there are several ways to ask questions, or you can post them into the chat box, and that can be in Dutch, French, or English as you like. And then we will pick up the question, and we will dispatch the question to the person that wants to answer. If you want to talk, there's a possibility. So you just raise your hand, and then I can give you access to let you talk. So that's another option. So if you want to do that, you can just raise your hand, and then we can open your microphone. So it's up to you. I mean, I think the easiest way is just to put the question into the chat box, and then we can answer the questions asked. The session will also be recorded, so you will get a copy of that recording afterwards. So you will have access to the webinar. Just to tell you who is who on the call. So I'll introduce myself for who that doesn't know me, that don't know me. I'm Jurgen van Damme. I'm responsible for the microbiology marketing in Northern Europe, so for the NEC cluster. So and of course, VITEK2 is part of that portfolio. I'll let the floor to Cécile.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cécile Malencher, and I'm application specialist microbiology, yes, in the Benelux.
Well,
hello, everybody. I am Romuald Courtal. I'm working in France, and I am the marketing director for EMI for all microbiology range. And I will be talking to you about Ucas, the reminders about the new updates.
So now you know who is who, and then we'll go to the program of today. So you already got a copy of that. So we're in the introduction at the moment. Then Romuald will give a small reminder, approximately half an hour, on what are the new definitions in EUCAST 2021. So we're talking about the new definition of the intermediate category. We will also talk about the off-scale breakpoints and the new area of technical uncertainty. So that will be presented by Romuald. Then after that, we will have a demo of Cécile. Cécile will present a demo to show you how you can introduce these new guidelines into the VITEK2 system. And then, of course, we have some time for questions. So as I said before, you can raise your hands and talk, or you can just post them into the chat, and then we will just read your question. And as I said before, you can post them in Dutch, in French, and we will translate. So if it's easier for you to put it in Dutch or in French, then it's fine by us, of course, and we will just translate and answer in English. So it's a little bit a plan for today. So we planned 1 hour and 30 minutes. I'm not sure we will. I think we will see. It also depends on how many questions we have. so it can be shorter. So we planned enough time. So normally it would be fine to keep track of time. So that's a little bit what I wanted to discuss with you as an intro, and then I will give the floor to Romuald for his presentation on the new guidelines.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jürgen. So here you should see my screen now about the EUCAST 2021 update. I think it's a good starter before going into details with the part of how it can be implemented on VITEK2.
We don't see your screen.
Okay, so it sounds like I didn't share correctly. Yes, I didn't validate.
Yes.
Now you should.
Yep.
In full screen, correct?
Now it's in full screen. Thank you.
Okay, good. That's correct now. So I'm sure you know most of the things that I'm going to tell about the EUCAST 2021 update. Even if we call that update, there are some few things that has been implemented already since some years. But I think it's good to have a look at that. And of course, what will be said during this talk, half an hour talk, is all available in EUCAST. You know, it's a free online database and information source that you can access to. So there is nothing from bioMérieux property. It's all EUCAST property. And I wanted to mention it. And if you need to have all the details you want, you can, of course, go there. And we will be together, be going into the web site online together. So version 11 breakpoint table is the last one. Now you see here the different definition of the legend of the version 11 2021 breakpoints. Of course, you've got probably you noticed that everything which is in blue has a hypertext link, which will link to different things. For instance, when you will be clicking on the breakpoints which are in blue, you've got the DMIC distribution link. When you are going to click on the antibiotics, you will have the access to the full rational documentation about the molecules. So I do encourage you to have a look at that as well, as you have all the information about the rationale for this molecule. Of course, depending on which method you use, it can be liquid or solid. You've got all the breakpoints or the diameter breakpoints in millimeter or in milligram per liter. Also important to tell that the ATU, the area of technical uncertainty, has been added since a couple of years, and probably something that we don't look very well at, but important also to mention. This is where there is a BP, which is in parentheses. It means that it's used to distinguish between wild and or with or without acquired resistance mechanism. That's something you can also have a look to. And of course, it is highly encouraged to read all the comments related to the DMIC breakpoints or the zone diameter breakpoints when there is a letter. Also, indeed, when there is insufficient evidence about the molecules, you will have the EE indication, as well as when it's in preparation, you will have an EP. NA, it means it's not applicable, so it's not used. And when there is also a kind of dash, it means that there is no BP, and as such, the AST is not recommended. And we're going to speak a little bit today about that area of technical uncertainty, and also, of course, about the arbitrary Offscale breakpoint that are mentioned here, with the log concentration being at 0.001, which categorize the wild type organism as systematically susceptible under increased exposure. So that's just for a reminder about the table. And what maybe we can do, as we are going to speak also about the epidemiological cutoff, we will be going together on the EUCAST website. So I need to reshare my screen because I guess that I didn't took into account all the screen, but only the PowerPoint. So now you should be also seeing the UCAS breakpoint, correct? No, not the UCAS breakpoint, the UCAS website.
You can see it, Tom.
Okay, good. So of course, the breakpoint is available there. And in January next year, we will have the version 12. So you can have access to this table. But what I want to show to you is the MIC and zone distribution and the epidemiological cutoff. So when you click there, you will have an access to the to the database. Let's do it together. So here, when you click on it, you have the distribution and cutoff. You have, as such, the access to the database of all the MIC distributions. You can have an access per molecules or per species. And for instance, here, I can choose E. coli. Or Enterobacter coagulate would be quicker. And then you've got the access of all the molecules and all the available MIC distributions. And you've got also the number of strains per concentration that has been registered inside. So if, for instance, I'm clicking on cefepime with Enterobacter coagulate, you can see here that we have the MIC distribution for these molecules, and this is a drug combination between molecules and organisms. And you've got a representation with some blue histogram and red one. Of course, the blue is about the non-wild type concentration of MIC you can encounter for these bacteria. When we say wild type, we're going to see exactly what it means. And now the EUCAST is also implementing in red for some antibiotics the non-wild type MIC distribution. So you've got in blue the wild and in red the non-wild, and this is over distributed and spread over the epidemiological cutoff. So here it's, for instance, the epidemiological cutoff for cefepime is 0.125. So everything which is equal or below is categorized as wild type, whereas when it's upper, it's non-wild. So I wanted to mention that because, in fact, this is a huge database from the EUCAST. We are also using in VITEK2 this database to feed our advanced expert system, especially for the wild type. Indeed, they have approx more than 25,000 MIC distribution in the EUCAST database. To make just a comparison, because we have implemented the same approach with the VITEK2 and the advanced expert system. We have nearly, not yet reached, but nearly 60,000 MIC distribution also in VITEK2, because it's including all the non-wild type phenotype that EUCAST has just started to implement. And we have implemented this since the year 2000. So now we have more than 20 years of experience with VITEK2 and this MIC distribution. But it's also a good point to see that this MIC distribution is a common ground of approach that you have within the EUCAST and also within the VITEK2. And I'm also encouraging everybody to have a look, a frequent look at those information, which are very useful when it comes with the resistance mechanism detection, or when there is a need for a deep diving into the resistance mechanism. So going back on that, as we could see, the ECOF, the epidemiological cutoff. So you've got all the explanation about what I'm showing now, because you could see the MIC distribution live. And you've got online database which contains all this large volume of MIC data for bacteria and fungi. This is a free access, and you can have all the details as you would like to. And it's also possible to participate to the elaboration of this kind of database. So here is the representation of the same things you could see. So this is the example of the Trimetoprim sulfa and E. coli. So the wild type, coming back on the definition itself, this is where there is no acquired and mutational resistance mechanism for the drug. So it means that it's really the simplest profile pattern for this organism. And then when it's not wild type, there is a presence of an acquired mutational or mutational resistance. Here, of course, this is a combination of all possible acquired resistance that could be encountered. In VITEK2, you will have the details on which one it is. And what is important to keep in mind about the epidemiological cutoff values is that this is based, as we saw, from a very large number of MIC distribution, coming from strains from worldwide sources, and they are repertoried and registered for each antibiotic and species combinations, just like in VITEK2. And this is very important to have, because when there is no breakpoints, it can be very useful to monitor resistance drift over the time when you are doing your susceptibility testing or when you are testing the molecules. They are very, very useful for epidemiological reasons. Of course, the concentration, and I'm taking here the example of Trimetoprim sulfa, the breakpoints are not the epidemiological cutoff, because the breakpoints are taking into account the therapeutical conditions and the therapeutical approach for the treatment. So that's completely different, and this is two different things. And here I could just represent those concentrations on the graph to distinguish them from the epidemiological cutoff. This being said, here this is also the same representation with now the breakpoints, which can categorize the different microorganisms and predict the outcome clinical prediction. So there is a small concentration most of the time, and a highest concentration. Those will define the likelihood of susceptibilities or failure. Sometimes there is no intermediate category, even with the new definitions. And these clinical breakpoints are useful for the everyday usage in your daily routine for patient care. So this being said, we use this graph to represent now the different category and to speak about the different category, because there were a big change in terms of the definition of the clinical break. In the past, we were used to have this susceptible category, intermediate category, and the resistant category, which are represented here in green, yellow, and red. And of course, when I learned microbiology, I learned that ES was susceptible and was meaning like success, S like success of, let's say, likelihood of therapeutic success. R was, as we could say in France, raté, or failure in English. It means that the likelihood to work was not probable. And there was this intermediate category, which was a kind of a mix of everything. It could be that it would be usable for therapy, but due to the fact that, for instance, the antibiotic could be concentrated physically in a specific place, for instance, urines. But also it was a buffer zone that could prevent some technicals or uncontrolled factors causing some discrepancies or inconsistency in the interpretation. And we were used to say I don't know, intermediate like I don't know, because it was uncertain according to the therapeutic effect. But that was the old definition, because it was a mix of everything. So the Ucas decided to clearly separate the uncertainty on one hand and the exposure on the other hand. So the uncertainty which is linked to therapeutic effect or technical results is now part of the area of technical uncertainty, and the exposure is strictly what we can find now in this new category, which is the physiological concentration or the dosing strategy, and the exposure reflect only the reporting that should be done in terms of therapeutic and exposure. So if I'm taking back again the same representation to do so, I would now do everything or classify the susceptible part and the old definition of intermediate as green, meaning susceptible. The only difference between the susceptible one with below the lower concentration is the high probability of therapeutic success. So this has not changed, but using a standard dosing regimen, whereas the intermediate category means now susceptible under increased exposure category. So here there is a likelihood of therapeutic success if the exposure to the agent is increased. And the resistant category has not changed. So this is now important to have these clear new definitions in mind, because that will help to understand what the area of technical uncertainty is. And at the same time, there is a recent publication that has shown that most of the clinicians doesn't know the new definitions. So, and the systems are still reporting I as intermediate. So this is the reason why it's important to have the spread of information and the transfer of information that now it can work with the intermediate category under an increased exposure. And this is important to have this discussion with the prescribers. And I think that this change, at least, is the opportunity for us, all of us, to discuss the patient treatment and the patient strategy for the treatment. And this change of the definition is one of the aspects that could be discussed with the healthcare professional or the partner, the counter partner you have. So if we just summarize as a key takeaway this new definition, I would say that now the intermediate category and the new definition of the susceptibility is now only considering exposure, and it's not longer a mix. It's not any longer a mix of technical and clinical elements. So that's why when you are reporting I, it means susceptible under increased exposure. And according to the EUCAST, the aim is to spare the broader usage of broad spectrum antibiotics in the context of your antimicrobial stewardship program. And therefore, there is a clear separation of the technical uncertainty and the clinical exposure. And here the intermediate category report only category based on therapeutic and exposure. And this is now asked to the laboratory to manage this technical uncertainty. And that leads for us to speak about this area of technical uncertainty. So going on the area of technical uncertainty, when you look at the table, the breakpoints table, you can see clearly this ATU column. I will straight mention that this is not a new category, therapeutical category, like we saw, of course, with the susceptibility or the susceptible category, the resistant category. There is not an ATU category. This is just an area of technical uncertainty, and both for this diffusion and liquid method, you've got information about the molecules and the combination between the molecules and this possible zone of technical uncertainty. And of course, they can be different from depending on the method that you use. By the way, there are more area of technical uncertainty that what you can see on the screen, because I just here took the one that could be applicable for VITEK2. I didn't take the one for Haemophilus or the bacteria you cannot perform on VITEK2, but considering those that can be done on VITEK2, depending on the panel of antibiotic you use, we can see here the molecules, the bacteria, or the species that you can have area technical uncertainty with. Here the MIC value of this area of technical uncertainty, and as well you've got also the disk diameter in millimeter for the same definition of area of technical uncertainty. We can see here clearly that this diffusion is bringing more zone where there is a potential technical uncertainty, and then there is the MIC breakpoints for those combination of spaces and antibiotic. So this is just a recap of this ATU. Going on the ATU definition, what is the ATU and what it's not? In fact, this is a range of or it's MIC values where there is a lack of reproducibility. The interpretation the reproducible interpretation, as it cannot be achieved, this value will give you a warning that we are in this area where the interpretation is difficult. And what is important to say out loud, it's assuming that the test is correctly performed. Because of course, if you didn't standardize correctly your McFarland, or if you did something wrong and you have a doubt on the let's say on the method, of course it will be much more complex when you will have this value to take an action. So I will take the assumption here that we have done the test correctly, and as such it means that the method cannot be the one responsible of the MIC value. So if you are sure that the MIC value is the one not having any technical problems from your method, in this case, you are exactly falling in an area where there is a difficult interpretation to be made with this value. And it doesn't mean that it's not correct. It means that, and the MIC is wrong. It means that there is here an uncertainty. As we said, again, what the ATU is not is a new category like S, I, or R. So it will not interfere with the resistance mechanism interpretation and the interpretative reading that you are going to do. It's a warning only. Having this warning, we know that it's quite challenge to deal with this area, because of course, if you say to your prescriber that you are uncertain about this result, it doesn't give a good image, and it can be a source of discussion and probably a risk of uncomprehension between what you are providing as a result and what you want to tell. So there are different ways to tackle that, and the EUCAST is proposing some options, let's say. Up to you to find the best one. The first action mentioned is the repetition of an alternative test. Of course, you can use MIC strips, or you can cross with the PCR test you could have been doing. Whatever. If we make the assumption that the method was correctly performed, for me, there is no need to repeat the test, because if you find another MIC you will be in trouble to tell which method has the right answer, let's say, because at plus minus 1 deletion, you can have a jump into the different MIC. Every method is precise at plus minus 1 deletion. So maybe you can have this 1 plus minus 1 deletion variation. So repeating the test can sometimes not be the solution. If you report the ITU as uncertain, I think it's not the best way to do, because it doesn't represent, or it can be, let's say, misunderstood by the clinician from what you want to say. So probably that's where the Ucas say that it could be you can leave it blank and discuss with the clinician. When there is only few alternative in terms of therapy, this is where it can be interesting to consider that value in case there is no other options, for instance, and you want that molecules to be used. It's the only one that can be used, for instance. So in this case, the discussion with the clinician is key. Then you can upgrade, let's say, the results from S to I or from I to R. In this case, you take no risk, let's say. You just somehow have a safest options, but it can lead to sometimes reducing the therapeutic alternative you give. It can be, in some cases, an issue. So it has to be done case by case. Discussing the result, we already mentioned it, and repeat the test as we discussed, or we discussed it also. So the area of technical uncertainty, to be honest, is something challenging to be managed. Up to you to decide which is the best option for you to take. VITEK2 is, anyway, as you will see that later on with the next speaker, is able to implement this warning. And as we said, it's just a warning. And I think for the lab is very useful to know that here there is an area of technical uncertainty, and for the action to be taken, take the one which is for you the best option that you can decide. I know that there are a lot of discussion about this ATU and the implementation of it when I discuss with the customers. Now, to finish that, we have this Offscale breakpoint, which is the 0.001 low concentration. And in fact, this is how the UCAS has been making the systematic report of susceptible under increased exposure, as there will be no S category. At the beginning, I had a lot of questions from customers saying, wow, how can we test 0.001 concentration? The purpose is not to test this low concentration. The purpose is to decrease as low as 0.001, the lowest concentration, in order to have a systematic reporting of susceptible with the intermediate category and the new definition, in order to have systematically an increased exposure for this combination of molecules and organisms. So you've got, and I didn't make the summary, but I have it somewhere. I made the recap of all the Offscale breakpoint that we can have been we can have for VITEK2, and based on that, there is also a possibility, of course, to implement this Offscale breakpoint if you want with the VITEK2. So in conclusion, I would say that with all these new updates and news from UCAST, which are not new from this year, we are able on VITEK2 to implement them and be flexible to implement them or not, depending on your willingness. And this is the key takeaway that I am presenting here on the screen about the Offscale breakpoints, which is the main point, that to making sure that the Offscale report systematically susceptible under increased exposure. It's also, it has not been to be part of the testing, as we said. It has not been to be covered by the doubling dilution of the test, but it's just to include a concentration for the reporting of the intermediate category and the resistant category with the new definition. So yes, I will be now nearly giving the floor to the next speakers, but what I could say from VITEK2, just as a starter, you have all the flexibility to implement it or not, partially or totally, depending on what you want to do, and that's what we are going to see. Based on that, I would just like to remind you that the cards that you are using contains different concentration, and there is a kinetic reading. You've got different cards for your susceptibility testing. What I would like to remind to you is that we are covering a very broad range of concentration. Even if we are not fully testing the full range, we are able to report the full range of what we are able to report as an MIC. So for instance, on average, you've got 5 to 6 concentration per antibiotics in the card, in the VITEK2 cards. And we are able, with algorithm, to report up to 10 MICs. And you've got here the example of the ceftazidime going from 1.12 to 64. This is the MIC calling range we are able to report, with the breakpoints here in green, orange, and red for the different categories. And the dots are the concentration that we are physically testing in the cards. And the algorithm of the VITEK2 is able to report from 0.12 to 64. Using the kinetic reading, it provides faster time to results, providing the MIC as well. It covers the broadest MIC range as possible, and the highest number of doubling dilution as possible. Based on that, I want to remind that to report the MIC, we are following very restrictive performance and guidelines. We are following the FDA regulatory criteria, and we are following the ISO standard also criteria in order to report the MIC and the category. And for that, we have to fulfill with the threshold that are mentioned here, which are that we should be higher than 90% in terms of essential agreement for each MIC. It means that we have to be upper than 90% of cases compared to microgrowth dilution and the VITEK2 MIC report. We have to be more than 90% agreement, have an agreement between the two methods and the reference one and the VITEK2 in order to be able to report the MIC. And the same for the category. We have to be more than 90% to report the category for each category. If not, we will have a limitation, and we will be giving you a warning that below this value, there is a risk to report the MIC or the category. And also, when we calculate the errors, it could be the very major errors, which has to be less than 3%, the major errors that have to be less than 3%, and the very minor error, we are following the threshold from the FDA and ISO. ISO is below 3% for very major errors, and the FDA is below 1.5, which is even more, let's say, restrictive than ISO. So what does it mean? What does it mean, those values? It means that when we provide the MIC above the range, the MIC calling range that I was showing to you, you have the performance and the reliability needed for this MIC. And because our VITEK2 must meet this regulatory criteria. And when we obtain the CE marked or the FDA clearance, this is with those criteria. So those criteria, all those information are completely available in the IFU of your card. So you can download the IFU of your card. You will obtain all the details of the molecules, the concentration that are tested in the cards, the MIC calling range you will cover, and the potential indication for use if there are some things to know. And as such, you will have also what I was mentioning here, which are all the value for the essential agreements and the percentage for the MIC of very major error, and minor error, and same for the category agreement. So remind that everything is available. It's a huge work to be done to make this calculation and these clinical studies on the different strains for that. And there is a full transparency. This is the example of the VITEK2 AST cards, but you can use your own and you can have a look at your own cards you are using in your country to have access to all those informations. So I do encourage you to have a look at that. And that was to make the link with the next speaker now. And I hope you could find all your information needed in this talk. So in case of any question, I can answer, or I will give the floor to Cécile.
Yes, thank you, Romuald. So yes, for your questions, again, a small reminder. So again, you can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand and we will answer them after the talk of Cécile. So Cécile will take over now and we'll discuss on how to introduce these new guidelines into the VITEK2, and I'm sure there will be some questions after Cécile's presentation. So I'll leave the floor to Cécile.
Explain to us, what Romuald explained to us, I will show you how to implement this in the VITEK software of the PC, of course. So there are 2 points. There are the off-scale breakpoints and the ATUs that we have to show you how to introduce. So first of all, the off-scale breakpoints. So just to remind you, the off-scale breakpoints are the very low breakpoints you will see on the Ucas. All those breakpoints, of course, are available on the site of EUCAST.org. Yes, Romuald already explained this slide. So we have categories, but they are a little bit changing due to Ucas. So I took one example to show you how to change the breakpoints. So in this case, is it cefuroxime EV? So it's important the IV. The IV is the infection site. Okay. You see it's 0.001 and 8. Just to remind you, you see that for the R, it's in the Ucas, it's mentioned larger than, larger to. In most of the VITEKs, program as larger or equal to. So this can be kind of a difference in your VITEK. So this is really important that you notice it. So when you go in the VITEK PC, and I said it's a VITEK PC, not on distance, so not your Flex Pro, you go in the VITEK PC himself, you open the white icon of the VITEK, so the old system, you will have this tab where all the programmation is visible, and you go to AES configuration because we will change breakpoints is in the AES configuration. Don't try to do it on your remote system, because on your remote system, it's only a view AES configuration, so you can't change it. Okay. So when you are on the VITEK PC in the AES configuration, you will have in the custom system, okay, you can open it and you will see breakpoints. You go to the breakpoints and all the breakpoints that are active will open in front of you. You can sort them by organism, but the easiest way in this case is to sort them by antibiotic, so it will be more visible what you are doing. In this case, we chose cefuroxime, okay, and we change the breakpoint for E. coli. Okay. So what does it mean? We change it to, for the EV, we make an infection site other, and you will put the 8, because it was 8 for R, so it was larger to 8 for R. You will put smaller or equal to 8 in the I. So it means that for everything below or equal to 8, it will be I on your reports. Okay. To show you, I put here the Ucas 2021 IV. It will be interesting to put it also, so you have afterwards, you know why you put that breakpoint like that. You can also leave for other infection sites. In this case, it's urine because it's different infection site. You can leave, sorry, the 8, so smaller or equal to 8, you can leave it in the S. So this is the most difficult one of the off-scale breakpoints, because there are 2 infection sites. Okay? So you have to see which infection site you will put in an I and which in an S. All the other infection sites, all the other breakpoints with off-scale breakpoints, you will only have this one. You will only have the one with the I and the R. Okay? This is the only one that's more difficult. No question for this? What you can also add, it's not mandatory, but it's just for you. You can add also an advanced reporting tool. So we still in the configuration, and we go, instead of AES configuration, we go to advanced reporting tool. In advanced reporting tool, you have an overview of all your rules. It means you have custom rules that are your rules, and we have local and predefined rules. So this one you can't change, but in the custom, you can change or add some rules. You can see the red one are not active or inactive, and the green one are active. When you make a rule, you go to the sun, you make a new one, you give it a name. For example, here the name is Offscale cefuroxime. The status is enabled, so enabled means it's active, it's green. And then you can make a rule like, what if a certain situation is going on, what should be the reaction? For example, here, if it's an Enterobacteria C and cefuroxime is smaller or equal to 8, then we want some action. And the action in this case, in this example, is first, we will stop for review. Stop for review means that we won't send the result automatically to your LIS. The second one is an internal comment. An internal comment is a message. It's completely free text that will be visible on your VITEK PC when you read the results, and will also be visible on your reports. You can also make an external comment, and an external comment will be sent to your LIS. Of course, if you send something out of the VITEK to your LIS have to be programmed to get the information of the VITEK, to receive it. Okay, but make an internal comment, it's not a problem. If you want an external comment, so send to your LIS, you have to contact your LIS to organize it. The third action we put here is suppress for reporting. Suppress for reporting, so it means it will be visible in your results, but it will be not sent to LIS. This is just an example. Of course, it's not mandatory. You can do it if you want. It's just a help that you can install in your VITEK PCs. So just to show you how it will be on your VITEK screen. So the first one was to be reviewed. So it will not be sent automatically to your LIS. So you have to review it and to validate the results. The second one is an internal comment that will be visible on your reports. I put here just a free text Offscale breakpoint cefuroxime S smaller or equal to 0.001. Of course, you can put the text you want yourself. It's not a problem. It's free text. The third point was don't send it to the LIS. So stop for reporting. So you will see here the small box is checked. So it won't be sent to the LIS. And you see that there are two breakpoints. So there is only one measurement of the cefuroxime, but due to the two breakpoints, you will get two results. So the question is also which result will be sent to the LIS. In this case, both will be sent to the LIS. It's like the same for penicillin and what is it? Pneumocoque. For the penicillin and pneumocoque, you have also different infection sites. So most of you are programmed that the VITEK is sending the three mix, they are the same, and the three interpretation, and that your LIS is programmed to get only one in. So this is the same. So the VITEK will send the two interpretation, and depending how your list is configured, they only will get one of the two. There is another way to send to the LIS, that's point 4 on this view. You see the infection sites, breakpoint infection site. This is only available with the last version of VITEK software, the 902. So most of you are already in 902, or others are planned to be updated in the next few weeks, I think. So the other way to work is like here, possibility 1. So when you're introducing your card in a VITEK, so when you work with the Flex Pro, for example, on the moment you introduce your card in a VITEK, you can choose an infection site. So here are a small view of the infection sites. So if you choose here, for example, urine, there will be only a result for the urine infection sites in your VITEK. And only this one will be sent to your LIS. The second one was the possibility I showed you before. If you don't introduce an infection site on the moment of introducing the cards, both MICs and both interpretation will be sent to the LIS. I will show you an overview I made of the Offscale breakpoints. Okay, so this is just an Excel I made to be honest, it's not validated. So it just to show you how many breakpoints has to be changed. The only difficult one is this one, the one, oh, sorry. It's only this one, the one I show you.
We only see the PowerPoint, so you're not showing the Excel.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing. New sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So this is an Excel overview of the off-scale breakpoint that you have to change. The only difficult one is this one, the cefirixime. I just show you because there are 2 infection sites. But for all the others, it's only this. There is no specific infection site. So you have just to change the breakpoint, show it in the S. You have to delete it and add the one in the I. Okay. So I show you the most difficult one, so you can have an overview. The second part of the Excel here, the wet ones, I just add them because I was making a list, but those are not done by the VITEK AST cards. So it's not mandatory to change them. It's only those that has to be changed in your AES. Okay. You see my PowerPoint again? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is for the off-scale breakpoints. For the area of technical uncertainty, so if you go to the Ucas, you will see a column with ATU and you will see some MICs. Okay. Of course, with VITEK, we are using MICs, so we are not taking into account the ATU of the diameters. Okay, we're just looking at the ATUs of the MICs. So you are lucky because there are a lot more ATUs for diameters. So for the MICs, it's okay. Those are the comments that Romard already showed us. So just for you to understand that ATU is not a new category. It's just a MIC that is uncertain. And we have to show a message like that you are aware that this MIC is uncertain. That's the only thing we need to do. So in the EUCAST, you will see, of course, for example, here for CIPRO, the ATU of 0.5. And what we propose is that you go again in your VITEK configuration and you go to the advanced reporting tools. And in custom, you can add rules. For example, here, the name is ATU CIPRO 0.5 Enterobacteriaceae, enabled, of course, so it's green in your column. And the conditions are if an Enterobacteriaceae and CIPRO MIC is 0.5, then there should be some action. And the actions can be stop for review. So you have to validate the result manually. If you don't want this, you can just leave this line. You can add an internal comment. Again, it's really free text. Okay. The internal comment can also be an external comment, but you have to think about how to introduce it in your LIS. And you can also add a suppress for reporting. So it means you will see in your VITEK the result of CIPRO, but the result will not be sent to the LIS. when we see a result on your VITEK screen, you will see the point 1, it has to be reviewed, so it's not automatically reviewed, you have to do it manually. The second one was the comments. As I explained, it's free text, so I put everything in it, but you can put just the explanation you want to see or you want to send to the LIS. And then you can see that's on the CIPRO, that it's not sent to the LIS. You will see it in a VITEK, you will see the result in a VITEK, but it will not be sent to the LIS. Again, I will show you the list of how many, now I did it correct. I go to the Excel. And then you can see the ATUs. To be honest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have to make 6 lines, 6 rules, and you are aligned with the Ucas 2021 instead of ATU. It's only 6 MICs that has to be changed. Again, the red one is something we don't do with the AST cards on the VITEK. Okay. That was what I have to explain. So I'm wondering if there are questions.
Yeah, so there are some questions that already have been answered, I think. So there was a question on, so if VITEK will take into account the infection site in the interpretation. But that has been answered in your presentation already. So if not, please let us know. And then we have a raised hand from Katrien de Kelper. So I will allow to talk. So I'll open it now. So normally you should be able to ask your question. So you're still on mute at the moment. And if it doesn't work, you can always type it in the chat box. There's another question asking why in the list of off-scale breakpoints it is noted not validated.
You mean in the Ucas?
No, in your Excel file.
Oh, in my Excel file, sorry, because I made it. So I just took EUCAST to make an overview to show you how many breakpoints there should be changed. But to be honest, nobody did a check. So it's only me making a list. So if I missed some or not, nobody checked it. So you can use the list, of course, but maybe you have to check the list with the Ucas before using it. It's not validated by somebody else of bioMérieux. That's the only point.
And maybe another addition to that, you saw that I presented the performances. When I presented the performances, I was mentioning that in our IFU, we are providing with all the information regarding the essential agreements, the category agreements, and the different possible percentage of errors. Changed by ourselves and not by an update of the breakpoints which has been validated. When we change by ourselves the category breakpoints thresholds, this calculation of essential agreement in terms of category here can be different from the one provided in the IFU. So that's why we make regular updates with the new breakpoints. Every software update is bringing new breakpoints updates, and where we are providing breakpoint updates with softwares, we are also recalculating all the performances that I was showing to you. And that's why we are fully confident with the results for the report when it's validated with the IFU and the performance indicated. if you do in advance the change, maybe the calculation can be different, and that's something we cannot validate as such straight. We need to make all the calculation when we make this change. That's what we call also the validation on top of what Cécile mentioned.
Yeah, and I agree, and I would like to add also on Romuald's remark that it's in updates, but we're also doing it in between updates. So when new UCAS guidelines are published, then we immediately start validating those breakpoints, and then we send a letter with the validated breakpoints. So that's something new that we started doing a couple of years ago. I don't remember when. But we have sent already some letters to that respect. So the goal is to have the validated breakpoints as fast as possible available to you guys. So there's another question on if it would be easier if we would push an update of the breakpoints to the customers, so in general. So that is a possibility, but keep in mind, and that's the difficulty, I think, is that a lot, and Cécile, you can add something if you want, but a lot of customers have their own set of rules. And so pushing a standard set within the 2021 breakpoints could erase them, so you don't have your rules, or you need to do everything again. So Cécile,
yes,
is that a little bit correct what I'm saying?
Yes, it's only. Can you see my screen? My PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's yes, we can push, but if we push, we can't push only the breakpoints. So if we push on your VITEK PCs, it will be the complete AAS that will be covered. So that means that all your interpretation, so therapeutic correction, will be changed to what we push. So it's a possibility, but everybody, all customers have to be agreed that we push the programmation we make. And to be honest, I'm not sure that everybody wants that. So yes, we can do it, but it's the complete IAS and not only the breakpoints.
All right. So another question is if it is possible to add an infection site afterwards. So when you read, so not before, but after, and can VITEK then send the correct breakpoints linked to that?
No, you can't change it. You have to delete the line and make a new one. So you have a button where you can delete it, and then you have to add a new line.
And then there's another question. So for the area of technical uncertainty, one of the options was report the result either from S to I or S to R or I to R. Can VITEK2 do this automatically, or is a manual intervention always needed?
Normally, I should say you have to do it manually, because when you want to do it automatically, it's possible. But you have to change the interpretations. So in the interpretations, you can make some rules to change an S to I, for example. It's a correction, a technical correction, but you should make it by every strain for every phenotype. So it's a lot of work. So you can do it, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, there is a huge risk of error, so it has to be made with care. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
It's not so easy. Yeah. But it can be done. Probably it needs to be to have an assistance for that, because it's not as simple as what you showed, Cécile.
No, it's
more complex, yeah.
And it can be 1 or 2 days of work.
Then there's a general question just on the recording. So yes, the recording will be available after the meeting, and we will also share the Excel file with the overview of breakpoints. And if you want, we can also share the latest validated breakpoints that we sent, and there will be a new letter coming out, I think, soon. I don't know, Romuald, if you have a date on that. So with almost with a lot of the breakpoints valid.
You speak about the EUCAST white paper?
Yeah, no, I was speaking about the new validated breakpoints that were going to be published recently. I think there will be a customer notification about that. And there's also a Ucas white paper. Exactly, it's a good thing that you mentioned that, Romuald. That will be published by us. So maybe, Romu, can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is exactly, in fact, what we have made during this webinar. The first part is written about the reminders, the EUCAST composition, and all the new definitions. There are details about what the EUCAST has been doing, and we have been involving EUCAST committee for the review of this part. And the second part is more about the VITEK2 with some approach that Cécile mentioned, plus a lot of details about the IES and the way the VITEK2 is working and how we validate the performances as well. So this is much more details about what we could see here as an overview. It will be a 20-page document, and it will be available in January, and we will be implementing table 12 at the same time. So end of January, you should be able to get this general overview of the VITEK2 and the EUCAST in this white paper. And if you want, yes, we can also provide the breakpoints situation and updates for all the molecules you are testing with the VITEK2 at the moment to make a comparison between what is currently being as a recommendation for the Ucas and what you have in your VITEK2 to see what is going on and what's the situation. But we are making a huge improvement of updating because we were conscious in the past, we were late sometimes. But now we are reacting a lot to update and validate the performance of the update of the breakpoints.
Meanwhile, there's another question that came in. So, and I translate in real life. So is there a way to start working from a copy of their database and then to modify the breakpoints and 2021 guidelines, and then to put it back onto the system? So you first take a copy of the database, then you change every rule and breakpoints, and then you upload it again?
Yes. So you can copy your complete IES configuration to another VITEK PC, make there the changes, and then copy it back to the main VITEK PC. So that's why we also telling labs working together in a group. If there are different VITEK PCs, we also said you can make the changes one PC and copy the AES to the other PCs. But you just have to know that those labs has to work exactly on the same way, because you copy also the therapeutic correction and things like that. Because it's the complete IES we will copy. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you, Cécile. Meanwhile, I don't see any questions coming in again. I mean, if you still have some questions afterwards, feel free to contact us, of course. We're always open to answer your questions. So I'll wait a little bit more just in case some questions still pop up. And if not, I think then we came to the end of our webinar. So with 15 minutes to spare. So I would already like to thank Romuald and Cecile for the help and for the nice presentation. And I would like to thank everyone that's connected, because you were very numerous for this session. And I hope it helped and it was a little bit clear for you guys to see how it can be done. And definitely, if you have some questions about it, you can still ask our local teams to help. And if something is not clear, to give some more explanations as well. So I don't see anything coming in anymore. So then I think it's time to end this session. Again, thanks everyone for your questions and for your participation. And I would like to wish everyone a very nice day. And let's meet another time. So thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.